This is the CLT, a safe place for you and me. Possibly the best show in the Queen City that's not on TV. The first few moments, I know, right, Freddie? The first few moments of going live, hello, Kyler, can be a little unnerving. Like sometimes you just kind of feel weird, and I just felt weird for a moment. Figured I wouldn't just start talking right away. I know you guys are all laughing at me. Sorry. I laugh at myself, which is probably pretty bad. Michael, hello. Adam, hello. Trying to read people's screen names is really awkward to do. I'm getting sidetracked. Let me focus. We've got a great guest on today. A guest that I actually used to work with back during my time in Houston, and that is Sebastian Salazar. And I believe, because he just called me, which is why I was a couple seconds late, I think he's waiting in the live request lounge. What's up, Edgar? Let's see. Okay. He's not there yet. So I'm going to continue. Remember that time last time I had to wait? Who was it? It was Heath Pierce, and I had to try to tap dance. Oh, thanks, Clara. I love the sweatshirt too, and I keep my AC on. Yes, it's summer, but you can rock a sweatshirt anytime. That's how I look at it. And you can go to charlottefootballclub.com. I got to plug it. And you can purchase one of these if you would like. I'm going to check again so I don't have to sit here and just make up stuff to talk about. So let me check. That's awkward. Oh, wait. Oh, wow, this is unprecedented. Sebastian, I see you saying, hey, but it says you're unable to join. So maybe you should log off one option? Maybe. I don't even know what a lot of this stuff looks like yet, guys. I see your questions coming through, and I wish I could give you some answers. Oh, wow, I really am going to have to tap dance right now. Guys, I'm starting to sweat because I'm wearing a sweatshirt. Please don't leave. Chris, it's going pretty good. This has been a pretty good week. It's Friday, so I guess that's really good. Giovanni, you want the hoodie? I don't know what size you are, but this is a medium. Okay, wait, we've got Sebastian, I think. So you guys can stop hearing me ramble. No, we don't. It still says he's unable. Sebastian, it says you're unable to join. All right, let's try this. You sent the request. I know, I see it, but it says you're not able to join. Maybe do you have to do you have to follow us? Anybody else want to troubleshoot out there? I should have put wine in a cup. That's what I should have did. I was going to put that in a teacup. Hello, Celicia. I'm sorry if I just butchered your name. Chris, let's try again with Sebastian. Oh my gosh, we got him. I was so scared. I think we have him. Yes.
I swear I don't work for ESPN. This is not ESPN's fault that my technology's terrible. I'm in between situations, so I apologize.
I didn't even really get to introduce you, but this is Sebastian Salazar. He is an ESPN reporter and host, and you may know him from ESPN FC. We were just talking, and you've covered it all from Olympics to the World Cup, NWSL, MLS. McCarthy's saying hola to you. So I know you've got some folks out there that are very appreciative of your work. Quick little backstory. Me and Sebastian used to work together in Houston. So when I was like, do this show, you have to. And he was like, yes.
was somehow very natural to me. So I very little choice in the matter.
So thank you for coming on. We're excited to have you. We're going to be answering your questions too. If you shoot some over, if you have some for Sebastian, I'll kind of shout them off. And as you guys know, this show just kind of goes in any kind of direction. So anyway, Sebastian.
And I apologize for my my fashion. I just came from, I don't have my hair, I don't have gel in my hair like you. I haven't shaved in a couple of days. When I'm not on TV, I try not to like ever do that stuff, as you know, because you see me around the station when I'm not on TV.
Yes.
It's faster. But yeah, so I was just coaching. So I ran in, and so the hat is more preventative than anything else, just so you don't see what's happening. Because I have a mixture of coaching hair, but also then quarantine hair, which is just not great.
Which is just not great. I mean, we'll let it slide this time. I was expecting the full get up like I'm accustomed to seeing, but you know, we're all at home. I'm wearing a hoodie and it's 800 degrees outside. But
I mean, I know your hoodie. It looks good.
I know, right?
I like the logo. I gotta give it. I like the colors. I like it.
I'll see if I can hook you up with something. We'll see what we can do.
I was just trying to get to that politically.
But anyway, I guess so. You were just coaching, right?
Medium. The size is a schmedium that I'm looking for.
Schmedium. Okay, I'll see what I can. I'll put in some.
Taller edge of medium.
Yeah, I'll make some phone calls and see what I can do. Okay, you were just coaching, right? Is what you just said?
Yeah.
So you're coaching the youth. What's your age group?
Yeah, so I do. Most of it is elementary school age. I think maybe. Right after we worked together in Houston, I moved back to DC, and pretty shortly thereafter, I started coaching with a program called DC Scores, which is right there. There's DC Scores like programs all around the country in major cities, and they're just kind of run through elementary schools, and they give very basic soccer instruction, nothing nothing otherworldly, but kind of provides an avenue for kids to first experience it. And then there's other programs that kind of take the kids that are really interested beyond that. So I live downtown in Washington, D.C., and I actually coach at one of the elementary schools here. And then now that we're not in session and our season got canceled in the spring, which was like a super bummer because we'd worked all winter. We had our big build up to the season, then it got canceled. That was tough on the kids. But now we do kind of more like one-on-one stuff because we're limited in terms of the groups that we can work with right now because obviously you can't have kids like scrimmaging and stuff. So everything's got to be one-on-one or one-on-two, which is not exactly why you get into coaching, but it's still a lot of fun.
But cool. I'm sure they appreciate having you out there, and I'm sure a lot of those kids are probably striving to hopefully one day play in the MLS. So I have to ask you then, Charlotte, we have this team, Charlotte FC now. What do you make of this league, expanding and having us be an addition to the MLS? Yeah,
I mean, first of all, I think it's anytime a league expands, especially in the parameters that MLS sets, which is like, let's be honest, a really impressive buy-in fee. You have to be really financially committed to join Major League Soccer. So I think right there you kind of see the standard at which, at least by money, you need to get into this league. So we know anybody that's coming in modern era is like really well backed, and so I think that gives an edge of excitement. Now we can obviously look at like similar models where we've seen a football franchise, an American football franchise, do something in the MLS space. You can look at it in Seattle first. You can look at it in Atlanta. Those are the really successful versions of it. You can look at it in other places like New England where it hasn't been so successful. And I think when you see the financial commitment necessary for Charlotte to join, you're like, all right, well, they're going to do it right. They're going to do it right. So I think anytime that you see somebody come in with that amount of commitment, it's exciting. And then I think we have to be honest about the geographic footprint. Major League Soccer is not really a national league yet. It's just not. It needs to be. It needs to be for its kind of business sense. And I think one of the last big, sectors of the country that was really missing out on MLS, or that MLS was missing out on is maybe a better statement, was the Southeast. And I think, Charlotte is one of the jewels when you look at that region. You've got to be in that city. It's an incredibly important city for a lot of reasons. And then it's a city that's had, if we're being frank, a lot of success in soccer. There's been a lot of big money soccer that's come through Charlotte, especially with the Mexican national team. My mother's Mexican, so I followed Mexico since I was a little kid. And when Mexico comes to the States, a lot of times they make a swing through Charlotte because they know they're going to fill a stadium there. And so I think that speaks to just generally, not Charlotte alone, but the area, the Carolinas' total ability to draw soccer fans. So it's exciting on a lot of fronts. I think it's great for the league, certainly, and especially in these times, to show that you're still able to grow, even if it is maybe on a different timetable than before, is super important from a business standpoint.
And also, with us being able to join in with the competition level continuing just to be elevated with the MLS's back tournament. So that's, obviously happening this weekend too. What's your take on what's going on, who do you have winning?
Who do I have winning? I mean, listen, picking winners in the MLS's back tournament possible. I think we have to be honest about what the tournament is. It's really chaotic. It's kind of, I think, watered down in a lot of sense. We don't have teams that are fully prepared. We don't have teams that are fully stocked. A lot of teams are missing key guys, either through injury at this point, or people who just opted out of the tournament. So what you're getting is kind of a who shows up in the moment. And I think based on that, my sense is just to bet on the Portland Timbers,
Okay, not Orlando. Okay.
I think they just have more track record of guys who at this level have shown up in the moment. This is a team with championship pedigree, and Orlando's not. Orlando's not a team that's accustomed to being in finals. Of course they have a guy like Nani, and you're like, this guy's played in every big game, in every big setting. And look, if he has his day and has a couple goals again, then Orlando City will win. That guy's good enough to make the difference on his own. But if you're asking me to pick,
I don't want to put you on the spot. I hate when people ask those questions.
It needs to be, people need to be put on the spot. Like that's the point. I'm gonna go with Portland. I just trust I trust their players more. I think they've been there a little bit more, and maybe that's me taking the easy way out. For something Orlando has advanced in this tournament. Maybe it's the comfort of being closer to home. Maybe it's the fact that they're a little bit more accustomed to the weather than a lot of these other teams have been, and kind of sustaining through that weather. I don't know if you remember when we were in Houston, like the Dynamo would always talk about the toll that like training every day in that weather takes on you. And like up to a point, it's like, oh, maybe it's an advantage to be there, but only if you know how to deal with it. And clearly Orlando does. And maybe that's how they've been able to advance so much. Because as much credit as I give like Oscar Pareja and Nani and the guys around the team, Orlando hasn't had success anywhere else. So, and this tournament is such a one-off with so many asterisks that it's like hard for me to be like, oh yeah, they're a good team, or no, I don't know. They made the final of a crazy tournament in a pandemic. That's what they did. And so I know Portland has been in the big game before, and I know they've won it. So I'll go with them.
So I do want to go back to what you said about the heat and being able to play and train in this kind of weather. So what you're saying is when we start playing in 2022, we're already going to be ahead of the curve given the climate that we're in. I mean,
so you got to fill me in. Like I've been to Charlotte a bit. Charlotte's not Orlando, Houston, humid, right? It's not on that level.
No, it's not the same, but it's hot. It gets hot.
Right. See, I think there's an advantage there. See, I always thought that in Houston the advantage came in like the fall, where the teams from the north who were getting that like first bit of chill and that first bit of winter would come down to Houston. Maybe, I don't know how late Charlotte stays warm, but if it stays, the MLS season is now, every year it changes, but now the regular season ends in like September, October. If it's still 80 degrees then, and you're from Philadelphia or even DC, New England, these teams start coming down there in October and it's 80, 90 degrees. That's when you suffer. When your body has changed to like, oh, it's the Northeast, it's fall, and then you got to go back down into that and you're not prepared for it, I think that's when those teams wilt. So maybe there will be an advantage for Charlotte, but let's be honest. I hope that's not the advantage that we're like looking to build.
It's not.
Heated our home. Like, come on, we got to get that.
Come on.
Hanging the home field advantage on heat.
Come on, but along those lines then, if you want to have one element that helps you succeed, I'm sure we're going to have plenty of them. When you look at the expansion teams, you've been covering this league for so long. What do expansion teams have to do? What would we need to do to make an impact, to start out strong out the gate?
So look, obviously I think one of the things when we talk about Major League Soccer is we have to talk about the salary cap, right? And that makes it so that there's an opportunity right away for teams to be equal in at least what they're paying the players. The other thing that we've seen is in the case of Atlanta, if you've got good people building it, and then in the case of LAFC too, if you've got good people building it, you can almost operate at an advantage now. Like the MLS teams that used to come in had to pick the stockpile from like everybody else's scraps. That's not really the system anymore. And so you're not really limited in your player pool. You can be a little bit more creative. So I think your first hires are really critical. Who's going to build your brand from the soccer side? Who's going to pick those players? what relationships do they have in the rest of the world, right? Because we know MLS now is not really a domestic league in terms of its star power. You've got to go down to South America and get young stars, or you got to go to Europe and get older, more brand name stars and bring them back. That's who you've got to build your team around. So you need those connections. And then I think the one area where we saw, which I love this about Atlanta, and I'll talk about Atlanta, and maybe people in Charlotte don't like that.
We've talked about them before, so we know we've already got a rivalry going.
And that's the bar. Like, if you're Charlotte and you don't meet that bar, that's on you. Like, they've said it, and I think it's only healthy that we kind of expect everybody who comes in to do what Atlanta did. They went out and they were like, oh, cool, there's a salary cap on players. Guess what there's not a salary cap on? Coaches. We're going to go hire a dude who coached Messi. We're going to go hire a dude who coached Barcelona and a dude who coached Argentina. And we're going to bring him to MLS. And I'm sorry, MLS coaches, you're not that good. And so when a real coach came in and started doing his thing, we got to see something really, really special in Atlanta. And there was no salary cap on what they could pay Tata Martino. So I would encourage, like, the first hire, swing for the fences, swing for like the biggest thing you can do with your coach, because that opens up every other door. And it's the one area where, like, you don't have to play by the limitations of a salary cap. You don't have to have the same limits that other teams do and who they've hired. You can go and be on a world level. And that's what Atlanta did. They hired like a world-class coach.
Certainly when we got into this league, we definitely came in, ready to kick down some doors. So I don't think, I think we'll be looking forward to some really good things when it comes to making those decisions on that front. I also got to plug the sweatshirt again, because I saw somebody asking. You can go to charlottefootballclub.com and you can pick up one of these. Sebastian, we asked everybody on this show about their soccer journey. So I know you played, weren't as good as me, whatever, but you played. So how did you get into the sport? Obviously with your mom being from Mexico too.
Yeah, so totally. I was actually, sorry, I'm just looking around. I had a little setup here with some trinkets, but
you didn't know? You can show them off. I don't know if you're going to be better than Jimmy Conrad's, though. I mean, he came out with a closet full of jerseys.
Nah, I had some
TJ,
really,
I got you.
I had some really cool mementos, but whatever. That, I don't know where any of my stuff is.
I know you don't.
So no, but you asked about. So my soccer journey is, I think it's kind of different than like a lot of kids. I grew up in the States, so I was born and raised in like the DC area, actually in like Maryland in the suburbs, and my dad is from Western New York, like a very rural area, so he didn't really have any soccer in his life at all. Maybe had heard about it a little, but really no exposure until he met my mom, who grew up in Mexico and then came to the States when she was in her late 20s. And this was in the late 70s. So my mom was a just like devout, huge soccer fan growing up in Mexico. She grew up in a time when girls weren't really encouraged to play. She loved to play as like a little girl, but by the time women hit adolescence in Mexico, she would have been in the mid 60s. It was very, very there weren't opportunities, it was kind of frowned upon, that women would be playing. So she really didn't have that chance to play, but always like kept the love of the sport. She tells great stories of my great grandfather sneaking her out of elementary school to like go see Club America, which is our family team, play in what is now Puma Stadium, Seúl. So like way back before it's the Azteca Stadium even existed. So she always had a love of the game, made sure it was always on in the house. We grew up watching, like Univision was always on because she spoke Spanish to me, and it was kind of always a big part of what we were doing. And even though soccer's not been on TV for a long time in this country, it's always been on Univision. Like, you don't see it in English in the 80s or the 90s, but on Spanish-speaking channels in the 90s, you could catch a game like a lot. All the time, especially in the early 90s, the Mexican League, which is what we were watching. So I kind of grew up just soccer, not just around, but also kind of the priority. So I think that's really where my love of the game started. And then I started playing like a lot of other people and got kind of caught up into it that way. And then I think I've kind of come back to it through broadcasting, because I think my early broadcasting career was more about broadcasting and like sports television. And then only now have I kind of come back to soccer in a TV sense. But, I think like your own case, when when you enjoy something as much as I enjoy it anyway, and clearly you as well, you can't always find a way back to it. You know, whatever you're doing, like my volunteer work is soccer coaching. You know, like whatever I do, it's kind of soccer related. You know, like no matter if it's work, if it's something else, it always kind of creeps its way back in. And so I think that, at least in my career, even now, is the case, and it's the same for you too.
Yeah, most definitely. And you know, I was just thinking about what you had said earlier, going back to how it's now soccer has now transitioned you into broadcasting. You've covered the women, you've covered the men. I mean, you've been to so many games and matches. Who have been some of your most memorable interviews? I know I've seen a couple in Houston with, but go on, please.
How much trouble do I want to get in on an Instagram Live?
Hey, go ahead.
Yeah, I think first of all, I would say, just recently, MLS, we were so blessed to have Zlatan. You know, like having that guy in the league was really special. And I say that from a like global approach. You know, when you think about MLS as a business and star power and the way he penetrated not just the English speaking, but the Spanish speaking market, his presence was so critical. And then beyond that, he's a guy that like gets it. You know, embraces the show and almost demands that you like kind of elevate to his level and do his show. I mean, you'll appreciate this because we've done the same job. So many sideline interactions are mundane. They're kind of the same. And even just like, and it's kind of has to be that way. Like after a big game, your question's not so important. Just like, how do you feel? And then they talk and like, that's what you want. It's not about like, how smart can I make this question? So sometimes you're supposed to keep it simple. But with this guy, it was always like, he's this character. And if you have an interview with him before a game and you don't get something out of him, it was kind of a wasted opportunity. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like a pressure before his interviews that was like, all right, like if this guy doesn't give me something off the bat, I'm going to like poke him. I'm going to be like, what about Carlos Vela? And like, what about this? And like, what about that? Like you said this earlier this week. Like, and, you know, I know because I have a buddy in the LA locker room who was like, hey, what'd you say to him pregame? I was like, what? Nothing. I did my normal interview. He's like, you know, he came in afterwards and he was like, hey, do you know that guy? Because he'd seen us talking. He was like, yeah, he's a real soul, you know? And I was like, oh. But then I think also, like, that's part of the genius of Zlatan. Like, anything that he comes across is like fuel to the fire, you know? And that was a game that happened to be, that game was LA against LA, Galaxy against LAFC. He comes out, has a huge game. And afterwards, and I swear this is true, they made the call that they were going to put him on SportsCenter. They were like, hey, it's such a big deal. Let's put him on SportsCenter Live with Linda Cohn. And you know, it was supposed to be my interview post game. So I'm like, I'm a little bit bummed, but hey, it's good. You know, it's good. It's good that this game is getting on SportsCenter. That's significant. We don't always get that window. So yeah, great. So they go on, they do it. And he comes over to me like afterward, like right before they're going to do it. And he's like, are we doing the interview? And he was ready to go. He was like, he had remembered the pregame slight that he had made up. And he was, are we doing the interview? And I was like, no, we're going to give you a headset and you're going to do it. And he was like, oh. And then after, like that. And I was like, yes, I did. You know, but hey, I loved the character. You know, I just loved that someone, you know, was so all in on being a villain, a good guy, a bad guy, whatever he was. And that sold. And, you know, to whatever people want to complain about that guy, biggest star the league's had, you know, since Beckham. And it's not close. People who didn't care about, not just MLS, didn't care about soccer were like, yo, what's up? What's this guy doing? He's talking all this smack. He's like making fun of the rest of the players in the league. You know, oh, sure, it was disrespectful, but like, sorry, it was great content. And at the end of the day, great content like drives ticket sales, it drives TV ratings. And so I love Zlatan in the league. To me, he's like, of the recent interviews and kind of the ones that have gone, not viral, but, you know, have made a little bit of noise, him for sure. There's others that have, you know, also ranked up there. But I think
you can throw them out there because something I talked about, I can't remember who was on. I know we had Julie Foudy on who, we'll touch on that too because we had some fun at your expense. But just how the MLS, you know, needs to have these, and they do very much so, have these guys just have these big personalities and how important it is to be able to showcase them.
Shout out Lee Burrows. I saw you, Lee. What's up? Lee worked together at DC United. He's the man. A long time servant of the club. I love you, Lee. Good to see you. He was the one of the guys present for my first interview with Zlatan in 2012.
Okay, I saw him writing that. So
let it be known, in a lightning storm at RFK, I chased Zlatan down and we got an interview. And and this is it. This is the thing about Zlatan. You never know. Like, when he talks, it's going to go global. And I asked him something, and he said something, mundane. And then I asked him something about Barcelona or being better. He was like, he had just switched to PSG, and he was like, "Oh, we're already better than Milan, the club he just left, and we're soon be better than Barcelona." And the next thing you knew, like, our little video was in like France and this, and the quote was everywhere. And that's because of him. That's just because of him, because of who he is and what he says. So shout out Lee. That was an awesome memory. Sorry, what was that?
No. I don't even remember anymore, but give me some of your more memorable venues that you've got to cover a match at.
Well, one, RFK, man. I love RFK.
Okay.
Let me shout out to RFK. That's the stadium that I fell in love with soccer at. The 94 World Cup came through RFK. Mexico played 2 of their 4 games there. I went to both of them. Amazing moments there with my mom watching Mexico play, and what was really kind of my first World Cup. I'd seen the 90 World Cup, but not followed it too much. 94 was right in our backyard. It was amazing. So I'll always love RFK. It's a beautiful kind of like old classic stadium, and it's had some huge soccer events. A lot of history with the men's national team. The women's national team as well has gone through there. So that'll always be kind of like my home, my love stadium that I think is special. I got to see an Olympic final featuring Brazil in the Maracanã, and that stadium full with like Brazil playing for a gold medal. It wasn't a World Cup final. It was a gold medal. Neymar was playing, scored an amazing free kick. I still have it on my phone. That was an experience. That to feel that stadium celebrate a gold medal in the men's game isn't what it is in the women's game, but it matters. And Brazil hadn't gotten there, and it was on home soil, and it mattered. It mattered something there. They had a lot of bad moments in that stadium that they had kind of needed to overcome. That was a really, really cool moment. Azteca in Mexico City is just if you can ever, and these games are running out, the U.S.-Mexico games.
Oh, yeah.
A World Cup qualifier in Azteca is something else. Like, if you're into soccer, it's something else. You just, it's like being in a beehive. I guess I've never been a bee, but I think that's what a beehive would be like. It's like almost like your head hurts from the shake. Your guts shake. That's what it's like. So I think that's a great. And then I think there's some cool ones in Europe. I haven't traveled Europe as much. I got to go to the World Cup, and so the Russian stadiums were very impressive. Luzhniki, where we saw Mexico beat Germany in the opener, was a beautiful stadium, absolutely impressive. And then Stamford Bridge is like kind of like an old Premier League ground that is one of the last big ones left that really kind of has that old feel to it for Chelsea. I got to see a game there with some of my buddies. So. Look, I think the beautiful thing about a soccer stadium, a football ground, whatever you want to call it, is it has, each one has its own story and its own memories and its own kind of like greatness. And so I think that's one of the things that I so much enjoy about like my job so far to this point is there's been a lot of travel and a chance to go around to a lot of places. I gave you a bunch of international any MLS ones. There's some great ones.
I know you didn't, but that's. You can go. Yeah, go ahead. The floor is yours.
Well, I'll just give Timber some love. I love.
Okay.
I
do have to jump in though because so we had Julie on last week and she was amazing. And thank you for connecting us, by the way. She had nothing bad to say about you, unfortunately. But I know you get to work with some obviously fantastic colleagues, Taylor Twellman, Julie. Anything interesting you could give us about some of those folks that we see with you on TV?
Yeah, so people are always like, it's funny. I mean, I think the primary show that I do, even though it's not on TV in the States, ESPN FC is on Plus, our over-the-top service. But it's actually like a huge international show. Like, we're big in the Caribbean and in Asia. Like, it's crazy. And so the characters on that show are very unique. It's a little bit like inside the NBA, where like everybody's kind of a character, on TNT, everybody's got their shtick. And so I think like whether it's Craig Burley, Ale Moreno, Stevie Nickel, people are always like, hey, are those guys really that way? Like, or are they really that mean to you? Because I kind of I play a little bit like, I play a character too, kind of like the happy-go-lucky host who's not afraid to toss a softball just to get it kind of smashed around. And, like we have a lot of fun. And so people are always like, hey, like tell this guy to lay off, or like, this person. But I think the great part of it is like, everybody's different. I work a lot with Julie. Really, she's one of the people that I've worked with quite a bit since I got to ESPN on women's national team stuff, and she's just the best. Like, on top of being nice, and I know you come across that all the time, right?
Yeah.
She's super plugged in. I think we obviously just see that she's now an owner with Angel City of the NWSL, which is super exciting. But Julie always kind of like, as a broadcaster, you always like to know that you're well informed, and so like I just go back to the She Believes Cup for a perfect example of this. There was a lot happening in that tournament. Like we were literally at the beginning of the pandemic. It was the beginning of March. We were dealing with like all these teams that are great, and great soccer was happening, but we were also dealing with the equal pay lawsuit, which was kind of exploding that week. And I don't know if you remember, it was literally, I read live the response from the then president of the federation. Like it was texted to me. I read it live, and the next morning he resigned. So, and we were dealing with all that, and I just kept thinking, after it all happened, like, how would I have gotten through that without Julie? Without somebody who really, I could be like, hey, but what's really happening? And she's like, oh, well, let me explain, And
yeah.
so I love, and that's one of the great things about Julie and a lot of the people that, you come across in American soccer like that. They've been around from player now through on the pundit side, on the broadcast announcer side. And it's great. I think the other person that people are always like, oh, they associate me with is Herculez Gomez on ESPN FC. And we've just done a lot of stuff together. And Herc's another great one who I think instantly, kind of like Julie, just had great chemistry with, super enjoy working with. And I think same with like Julie, Herc and I aren't afraid to go at each other. And like, maybe test one the other a little bit to try and make show. But that's our style. That's kind of the background we come from. He does a lot of work for ESPN Deportes. I do some. And it's just a little more combative and lively over there than it is.
Which is great, which is kind of what we were trying to do in Houston too. So, and I know I've kept you long. One last thing that we ask everybody. So what's coming up next? You got another IG Live next? You going back in studio? What's coming up?
Yeah, so I host ESPN FC. We're kind of back into a routine somewhat. ESPN FC never actually took a day off. So I host that a couple days a week. I'm up in Connecticut for that. And then little bits and pieces here and there. We're kind of waiting for what's next. If MLS starts up again, what that'll mean for us from a travel standpoint. But really, it's not going to be long before the European calendar kicks off again. And ESPN has the rights to Bundesliga now, which is going to be starting soon. And so all those soccer properties, CLTea is coming up. We're going to be kind of folding under our wing, and we'll all be involved in either calling those games, promoting those games. So really, like, I think that's the one cool thing about soccer that's just different is like, it's not one league. When you come from NFL Network. So like when NFL's not working, like that's it. The soccer never stops. When MLS stops, something else goes. When something else stops, MLS goes. There's always a good game, especially now. Like there's amazing games every day, it feels like.
Sweet. Well, we'll be looking for you, obviously. And you're always so knowledgeable, so don't want to give you too many compliments on here.
That's
so
right.
Kind of keep you knocked down a couple pegs. But everybody, Sebastian Salazar, thank you so much for finally coming on. We appreciate it.
Definitely. Thanks for having me. Good luck down there, and stay safe, everybody.
Thanks, you too. Everybody, that was Sebastian, or Sebi, as we like to call him. Have fun with those kids.
All right.
Hopefully they learn some good skills. I'll talk to you soon.
Not from me, but
thanks for tuning in to another edition of That's the CLT. You can get the sweatshirt. I said it before, charlottefootballclub.com. You guys have been so much fun. TJ, thanks. 558 Knuckles. Thanks. I'm glad you enjoyed having Sebastian as our guest, and Eduardo. And yeah, that's a wrap. So hope you guys enjoy your weekend. Stay safe out there, and we will see you next week. Bye. This is the CLT, a safe place for you and me. Possibly the best show in the Queen City that's not on TV.